in terms of what I'm doing with the council, even though I'm part of the sports council, they've actually turned to me more for small business feedback. And the advice that I gave them was that pickup and delivery has worked really, really well for restaurants. And because it's worked so well for restaurants and for other deliveries as well through delivery companies, that rather than rushing to open all businesses, particularly retail-facing businesses, that we extend pickup and delivery to anybody who wants to offer it, any business who wants to offer it, because it works, and we really haven't seen any issues with it. And part two of that is, there's a lot of oh, I don't know, there's a lot attached to the word open, right? Because everybody wants to be fully open, but like we saw here in the state of Texas, it's a 25% open, and that creates its own set of challenges because it's hard for a retail company, no matter what the size, to only be 25% open, particularly in a world with the PPP loans where you're limited in using the money for employees to 75%, and you can only be partially open and you only have 8 weeks. So there's a lot of things that have to be thought through that I think the city of Dallas really should try to work through before we come to any final recommendations ourselves. So that's one thing. And then the other thing that I've sent to the council that's relevant and also sent to the governor is I've been working with a group called AIHS, which is some Association for Industrial Health and Safety. And what they came to me about was looking for specific protocols for businesses of all types in order for them to open so that their employees feel safe and so their customers feel safe. Because I'll give you an example. If someone wanted to go into the Mavs hangar or go to Globe Life and try on a Rangers jersey or a Mavs jersey and decide they don't want it, you're allowed to just put it back, or what happens? Do you have to quarantine the clothes? Do you have to sterilize them? For a restaurant, if somebody comes in, has a mask on, sneezes, takes their mask off and leaves it on the table, you need hazmat. You need somebody to come in, and how do you deal with those things? Those are the little things that haven't really been addressed yet, that if they are addressed at a city, state, or federal level, start to induce confidence and give people a reason to go out. And then there's, the downstream issue. If we just open up very quickly, there's so many people, particularly in urban communities, that have to take public transportation. And so what are the safety factors there? If all of a sudden the rail lines and the buses are packed, are we going to have a resurgence because of the number of companies that opened up? Because from an employee perspective, if you don't say yes to coming back when your business opens, even if it's at a reduced capacity, you're losing your unemployment. And that's a lot of money right now, particularly with that $600 addition that the feds put on there. And that creates another set of problems because some people are making more with that than they are with their regular income. And so there's all these things that from a small business perspective, I think really we've been in such a rush because we're getting quarantine fever that we want to get out. But from the small business perspective, I've really been trying to push people to do the math and do all the calculations from a small business perspective. So that's on that side. On the MAV side, where the league has given us permission to open up our practice facility, but, and it's a huge but, only one player at a time, and so we can have one player at one basket and then 3 staff, one coach, one rebounder, I guess, and somebody to wipe up. And so it really hasn't been a step forward. And I'm good with that, actually, because if we just opened up fully, the message we might send to high schools and middle schools that it's okay to open up and start practicing again, that's a real concern of ours because we don't want to set a bad example that leads to people getting sick. So that, and then in terms of when we play again, I think, and I'm guessing here, this is not Mark Cuban telling you what the NBA is doing, but again, like Bob and Neil said, it all comes down to the science. But we're seeing some other sports, even horse racing as an example, open up for essential personnel. And what they're doing and what we think we'll end up doing, we'll pick 1 or 2 places in the country that have the ability to support multiple games at one time and thousands of hotel rooms in one location and effectively quarantine that location so that we'll keep players, essential personnel, and some family there, and we'll test them going in. But the key is they can't leave because those tests are only for one point in time, right? Who knows what causes you to catch it? And then if all of a sudden you were, negative and now you're positive, it's a disaster. So we're trying to create a safe environment that's quarantined so that we can play games. Because to your point earlier, we need sports. We need it bad. I mean, North Texas is all about sports. And I think our initial games will be played with no fans. And that's okay, because watching a Mavs game on television, watching a Rangers, Cowboys, whatever it may be, Stars, just being able to give everybody something to root for while we're at home and cheer for and get excited about. I think that's definitely our goal, particularly since the NBA, as you mentioned, March 11th, which seems like 3 years ago, we led the way in shutting down. And so we want to lead the way, if we can do it safely, to reopen as well. And then the last thing, in parallel to that, anticipating, and somewhat to what Neil's points were, anticipating us opening up at some point for fans, and who knows when, who knows what the rules are going to be. We're looking at every possible option to sanitize and sterilize and keep everything safe, making it so there's fewer touch points, in bathrooms, and putting sinks places, and, just anything where we can reduce things that people touch, using voice activation, anything that we can think of or that we can learn from others. We're trying to anticipate that now. And I think it was mentioned earlier about thermal. We're going back, just so you guys know where we stand. We go back and forth on that, because what was told to us by doctors is 3 extra strength Tylenol, and thermal doesn't work. And so if somebody really wants to get into the game or really wants to go to work, some Tylenol, and if they happen to be sick, and most likely they are, whether it's the flu or corona or whatever, then all of a sudden that whole system's dead, and you have, again, a real problem on your hands. So that's kind of the whole gamut, and we're happy beyond that to help the city in any way, shape, or form that we can.